And today we will be talking about teaching occupations and what courses are available and the PER pathways. So I'll be covering topics about teaching occupations, what occupations are in the long-term list and what are in the short-term list. And the main authority who does the skill assessment is AITSL, and we will be discussing the criteria of skill assessment and whatever the visa options available for the teachers. We will be covering that as well. And also, I'll be talking about the expression of interest, state nomination, and visa application process for teaching occupations today. So, firstly, I'd like to cover what visa options available for the teachers. And if we talk about the GSM, so class 189, 190, and 491 expression of interest can be lodged by teaching occupations which are in the long-term list. And teaching occupations are eligible for subclass 482 as well. Also, subclass 186 and 494 depends on the eligibility criteria they meet. So, the teaching occupations which are in the long-term list, firstly, the pre-primary school teacher. This is a quite popular occupation in these days for the GSM. And secondary school teacher, special needs teacher, teacher of hearing impaired, teacher of sight impaired, special education teacher as well. They all are in the long-term list. So I can see some questions are there. So Mr. Nitesh, you're asking if there is any RTL pathway and you're asking this question for your cousin. Unfortunately, the requirement is for the skill assessment, the applicant has to complete it 4 years full-time study plus 1 year relevant qualification, and then they may be eligible for the skill assessment. So there isn't a RPL pathway available for teachers. And if we talk about the teaching occupations which are in the short-term list, they are primary school teacher, middle school teacher, art teacher, and dance teacher. And these occupations, they can lodge the expression of interest for subclass 190 and 491, but they're not eligible for the expression of interest application for subclass 1 and 9. So if you talk about the skill assessment process, so the skill assessment authority is the AITSO, and requirements set by the AITSL are that applicant needs to complete a minimum of 4 years full-time study that must include at least 1 year full-time relevant teaching study. And during that course, they must have done 45 days of supervised teaching practice. And that is the minimum requirement set by the AITSO. And the English requirement, if the applicant have completed a 1 year full-time study in Australia, they may fulfill the English requirement. And if you talk about the IELTS, they need 7788 score in reading, writing 77, and speaking, listening 88, and they accept IELTS academic only. So, Mr. Nitesh, you are asking what qualification can be used. Like if we talk about the overseas qualification, if someone have done bachelor's of education and they have done minimum of 45 days supervised practice, then they may be eligible for the skill assessment as long as they have the IELTS academic 7788 score. So VETSS also does the skill assessment for the teachers, And if someone have the requirements set by the vertices are, if someone have the bachelor's degree or higher, which is equivalent to Australian bachelor's or higher qualification, and the study is relevant to the teaching, and they do have post qualification 1 year employment, and they may meet the skill assessment criteria for one of the teaching occupation. But this 1 year employment requirement is set by the vertices only, but AITSL, they don't have that requirement. And when a applicant lodge the expression of interest, and they can claim the points for different areas, like they get points for their age, for their education, and if they apply for subclass 190 or 491 expression of interest, they get the extra points from state as well. Like for subclass 190, they get 5 points, and for 491, they get 15 points. If they get 789s or equivalent, they get 10 points. And if they get 889s or equivalent, they get 20 points. For regional study and Australian study, they can claim points as well. For Australian study, if someone have done 2 academic year studies in Australia, they can claim 5 points for that. And if they have done that study, if someone is meeting the Australian study requirement, plus they have done that study in the regional Australia, then they can claim additional 5 points for that as well. There are other areas where the points can be claimed, such as work experience onshore and offshore, and if someone have done NATI, they can claim additional 5 points for that. So if you talk about the invitation process, so it start from the qualification of the applicant. Once someone completed their study, and the study is relevant to the teaching, and then they need to apply for the skill assessment either through AITSL, or they can apply for the skill assessment through VEDISIS as well. And once the skill assessment is done and they got the positive outcome, then they can be eligible to lodge the expression of interest for subclass 189, 190, and 491 for the occupation in the long-term list, and for the subclass 190 and 491 for the occupation in the short-term list. Once they get invited from the state, then they need to lodge the state nomination application. And once the state nomination application approved, they get an invite from the Department of Home Affairs to lodge the visa application for the subclass they are invited for. And once the visa application is lodged, then they may get the bridging visa they are eligible for, and they will need to wait for the outcome. And if you talk about the subclass 190 eligibility, and to lodge the expression of interest for subclass 190 is the applicant needs to have minimum of 65 points to be eligible for the expression of interest, and their age has to be under 45. Also, they need to have a competent English level in any of the English tests such as IELTS or PTE, and their occupation needs to be in the list. Like if we talk about the teaching occupations, they, even though they are in short-term list, they can be eligible to lodge the subclass 190 expression of interest, and for subclass 491 as well. Any questions? And the process for subclass 190 visa is, first we start with Once the skill assessment is done, we lodge the expression of interest and we claim all the points the applicant is eligible for. And then once all the points has been claimed and the expression of interest has been lodged, the applicant needs to wait for the invitation from the state government. And once they got invited from the state, then they need to lodge the nomination application for that particular state. And once the nomination is lodged and approved, then they can move forward to lodge the visa application once they get the invitation from the Home Office. If we talk about the invitation rounds, for WA state, the invitation rounds are still going on, and many private occupation the applicant who hold a skill assessment from a private occupations, many of them they got invited this financial year, and WA state they have invited people from the non-private occupation as well. So I got a question from Dream Win, and the question is, can we apply directly from India if we have 9 years teaching experience in kindergarten and primary without B.Ed? No, you can't. The Bachelor of Education is mandatory with the 45 days practice, supervised practice. Without having Bachelors of Education, it's not possible from India. And if we talk about subclass 491, skilled regional visa eligibility, and when we're talking about lodging the expression of interest, applicant get additional 15 points from the state, and the minimum 65 points needed to lodge the expression of interest and to go in the queue. And the applicant age has to be under 45, and they need to have a competent level of English to be eligible to lodge the expression of interest. And if you apply for the nomination criteria in Western Australia, then the applicant, if they claimed 15 points or like 5 points for 190, they they need to prove their residency that they've been living in WA and they have done their studies and they've been living, working in Western Australia. And they have claimed for the Australian study and bridging study points for that. And they need to prove the residency that they've been living in Western Australia state. And I got another question. So I got a question from Dreamwin that a diploma in elementary education from NIOS government based on India is acceptable. So the study has to be 4 years study plus 1 year relevant teaching course. Like if you talk about Bachelor of Education in India, it was 1 year in the past, and now I believe it's a 2 years course. If someone have done 4 years study, including B.Ed, and with the 45 days supervised practice, then they may be eligible for the skill assessment. But if they don't have that, it is unlikely they be eligible for that. So I was talking about the skill nomination process. Basically, we need to provide the evidences for the points we have claimed, and we need to prove the authenticity. Like we need to give the documentations to the state government. Like if we claim the points for English in IT, and we have declared that we been living in that particular state, we need to provide all those sort of evidences. Any other questions, guys? No other questions? So I want to cover a bit more about the graduate diploma and early childhood today as well, because the skill assessment authority for that is Australian Children's Education and Care Quality Authority. So what is the difference and this authority if you're talking about getting the skill assessment done? The first thing is they their English requirement is slightly different to AITSL. They do accept the IELTS Academic 7788 score as well. But if someone have done 1 year full-time study in Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, Canada, UK, USA, they meet the English requirement for the pre-primary school teacher. So if someone is, let's say, onshore in Australia, they have been doing some studies here, and once they completed it, and if it's a 2 years course, that they are eligible, they're meeting the English requirement. Let's say someone have done graduate diploma in early childhood, that course itself making the applicant eligible for the pre-primary school teacher skill assessment because it's covering the English requirement, also the study requirement as well. And this is a quite popular occupation, and the the applicants who have the positive skill assessment and they lodge their expression of interest, they frequently getting invited under this occupation. But other than pre-primary school teacher, or we call it early childhood teacher, the skill assessment authority is AITSL, or if someone have post qualification 1 year experience, then the skill assessment can be done from VETSS as well. So when we consult with our clients, then some of them they don't know like if they have done bachelor's of education from overseas and their English is good, they can do the English test like IELTS academic, and they can get 7788 score. They by the time they're finishing their study in Australia, they may get invited for one of the eligible subclass, and that can be helpful for them to fulfill their migration goals in Australia. And I'd like to also cover the primary school teacher skill assessment requirement uh, from AITSL as well. So the qualification the applicant needs to complete a minimum of 4 years full-time study or equivalent, and with a 1 year relevant primary school teaching study with the completion of at least 45 days supervised teaching. And if they have done IELTS academic with the 7,788 score, like reading, writing, they need 7,7, speaking, listening, they need 88. And they can apply for the skill assessment through the AITSL and for the primary school teacher occupation. And they can lodge their expression of interest for subclass 190 and 491, and they can increase their potential to get invited because it's the priority occupations, and this occupation getting invited quite frequently in Western Australia. And if someone have done this study from either Australia, Canada, Ireland, New Zealand, or UK, they may be exempted from the IELTS requirement. And if you have any further queries, you can always book a consultation with one of our registered migration agent. And if you want to enroll in any of the teaching courses, such as graduate diploma in early childhood, then you can book a consultation with our education team. And at OSIS Group, we assist with the various queries of our clients, like if someone needs assistance with student visa, dependent visa, scholarship admission, graduate visa, or a GSM pathway, employer sponsored pathway, feel free to come to our office, and we can check, we can assess your case, and we can let you know like for what could be your future pathway for your visa purposes in Australia. And we also having a conclave on 12th of July. It's a face-to-face conclave from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. across Australia. Please register for it. And you will have opportunity to have a free face-to-face consultation with our registered migration agents team. And you can ask the questions you have, and you can clear your doubts at conclave. Yeah, please do attend, and feel free to call our reception or send us an email if you want to come in and book a consultation. And if someone have done any overseas study and they have some questions, if that study is eligible, and if they can use it towards claiming points in their future expression of interest, yeah, please feel free to come into one of our office. So Asif Ali asked, which is the best course for PR? So it depends on your background, so, and depends on what visa you are currently holding. Let's say if you're holding a graduate visa, you have option. You can think of studying anything like I give you the example of graduate diploma, diploma of nursing, graduate diploma in early childhood, social work, community work studies. And if you need further information, yeah, feel free to come into our office, and you can have a word with our education team. They can tell you which courses you can do and which can be a suitable course. Depends on your visa subclass. And Abhinav, yeah, thank you. Yeah, we'll look forward for the conclave as well, and we're hoping for uh, a good number of people will join the conclave. And yeah, you can attend the conclave and you can clear your doubts. You can ask question. You can talk with our education team, migration agent, and you can, yeah, simply have a face-to-face consultation there. Any other questions? All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. And my name is Jagjeevan. And if you need to have a consultation with me or any of the migration agents in Nowz's group, yeah, feel free to contact us. Thank you. You have a good afternoon. Bye bye.